Morning arrived without ceremony, the kind that came pale in cold light, spreading slowly across the New Mexico territory as if unsure it was welcome there. September 17th, 1883. A Tuesday that would change everything, though no one knew it yet. Samuel Brennan sat on the front step of his small lumber shed, his hands working a piece of white oak with practiced precision. The wood was 6 feet long, destined to become a replacement rail for the corral fence. His hands moved in rhythm. 47 strokes with the plane, 48, 49. He counted each one the way he'd learned to count breaths during the bad nights when Thomas's face appeared in his dreams. 5 years, 5 years since his brother had died, and Tom still counted everything. Steps from the cabin to the well, nails driven into fence posts, hours of daylight remaining, as if measuring and quantifying the world could somehow make it make sense again. The wood shavings fell in perfect curls at his feet. 40 years old, but his hands were still steady. That much hadn't failed him yet. His back ached more than it used to. His knees complained on cold mornings. But his hands, scarred and calloused from a decade of carpentry, still knew their work. He paused at stroke 50, ran his palm along the grain. Smooth as river stone now. Good enough that it wouldn't catch on horsehide or splinter under pressure. Thomas had taught him that. Measure twice, cut once, and never leave work that could hurt someone later. Their father had taught Thomas, and Thomas had taught Sam, and now there was no one left to teach. The thought sat heavy in his chest. Sam stood, stretched his back until something popped. The sun was climbing now, painting the scrubland in shades of copper and gold. Bitter Creek would be waking. The bakery would open. The general store. Men would gather at the saloon, even this early nursing coffee that tasted like burned dirt, and discussing things that didn't matter. He needed supplies. Flour, salt, nails. The list was short, carved into his memory. He could make the trip in under 2 hours if he didn't linger. Sam saddled his horse, a bay gelding named Prophet. Steady animal. 15 years old, same age as Sam's career as a lawman had been before he walked away from it. The horse had been Thomas's gift, one of the last. The ride into town followed a worn path through sage and scrub pine. Morning light caught on mica in the rocks, making the earth sparkle like something precious. It wasn't. This was hard country where rain came seldom and forgiveness never. The kind of place that taught you to carry your own water and expect nothing from your neighbors. Bitter Creek appeared on the horizon like a broken promise. Buildings that had been painted once and never again. Warped wood facades. Windows that needed washing. The main street was wide enough for 2 wagons to pass, lined with establishments that served necessity rather than comfort. Blacksmith, general store, saloon, land office, bank. Everything a frontier town needed to take money from people who didn't have enough to begin with. Sam tied Prophet at the far end of the street, away from the noise and the questions that came with crowds. He checked the knot twice. A habit from his marshaling days, when a stolen horse could mean death in the desert. He started toward the general store, his mental list already organizing itself by shelf location to minimize time inside. But then he saw the cottonwood tree. It stood alone at the street's edge where packed dirt gave way to open ground. Massive trunk, maybe 4 feet across. Old. Scarred from years of use and abuse. Nails driven into it to hang notices. Rope burns in the bark from countless tetherings. 2 women were tied to it. Sam stopped walking. His body knew before his mind caught up. The tightening in his chest, the way sound seemed to muffle. The peculiar clarity that came when something wrong was happening and everyone was pretending not to notice. Their wrists were bound separately around the trunk. Not tight enough to cut circulation. Not loose enough to allow escape. The rope was old manila, 3/8 of an inch diameter. The kind used for hauling cargo. Overkill for restraining 2 women who couldn't have weighed more than 130 pounds each. They were Apache, young, maybe mid-20s. Twins, obviously. Identical in features but different in how they held themselves. One had her dark hair braided tight against her skull, every strand controlled. Her jaw was set, shoulders squared, eyes scanning the street with the alertness of someone who expected violence and was prepared to meet it. The other wore her hair looser, tied back just enough to keep it from her face. Her gaze was lowered, but Sam could see the calculation in it. She was studying the ground, the shadows, the angle of the sun. Conserving energy. Planning. Their clothing was practical. Leather and cotton worn but not ragged, mended carefully, the kind of clothes that belonged to people who understood the value of every thread. A wooden sign hung around the first woman's neck, hand-painted letters still wet enough to glisten. Thieves, 24 hours. Sam felt something cold slide down his spine. People passed. A baker stepped out of his shop, wiping flour from his hands onto an apron that had never been white. He glanced at the women, once, brief, then turned back inside as if he'd seen nothing more interesting than a hitching post. A woman carrying a basket slowed her pace, hesitated. Her eyes darted to the bound figures, then away. She adjusted her grip on the basket handle and walked faster. Two men in mining clothes stopped, lingered just long enough to confirm the punishment was still in effect, then moved on. Their conversation didn't pause. Whatever they were discussing was more important than two human beings tied to a tree in the center of town. The silence was deliberate. This was meant to be seen, but not questioned. Sam had seen this before. Different towns, different faces, same sick logic. Public punishment as entertainment, as warning, as a way for people to feel righteous without having to be good. His hands clenched. The old anger, the one he'd spent 5 years trying to bury under sawdust and solitude, began to surface. The woman with the braid noticed him watching. Her eyes met his without appeal or challenge. There was no begging in that gaze, no plea for mercy, just awareness. She had seen him stop, had seen him look, really look, when everyone else was performing blindness. Something in Sam's chest cracked. He thought about Thomas, about the last case his brother had worked, about the words written in that worn notebook Sam kept in his cabin, about the cost of looking away. Thomas had died because no one stood up, because people who knew better chose silence over risk. Sam had chosen silence too, had walked away from his badge, his duty, his brother's memory, had told himself it was survival, self-preservation, the smart choice. 5 years of smart choices, and what did he have? A cabin he rarely entered, a trade he practiced alone, a life so small it barely disturbed the dirt beneath his boots. The woman with the braid was still watching him, waiting, not for rescue, just waiting to see what kind of man he was. Sam Brennan made his choice. He walked toward the cottonwood tree. His boots struck hard earth, each step deliberate. A few heads turned. Curiosity flickered in eyes that had been carefully averted moments before. Sam reached the tree. Up close, he could see the rope burns on the women's wrists. Recent. The skin was red but not bleeding. They'd been bound for hours, probably since dark. Cold night, no coats. Their lips had a faint blue tinge. Early hypothermia. He pulled his knife from his belt. A case-folding knife, 3.5-inch blade carbon steel. He kept it sharp enough to shave with. Had to. Dull tools were dangerous tools. The woman with the braid flinched slightly when the blade appeared. A small movement quickly controlled. Her sister's eyes widened, but she didn't pull away. Sam cut the first rope cleanly. The fibers parted with a sound like a sigh. He moved to the second wrist and did the same. Then to the other woman. 4 cuts, maybe 15 seconds total. The ropes fell to the ground. Neither woman spoke. They flexed their hands, slowly working, feeling back into fingers that had gone numb. Their eyes stayed alert, bodies ready. This wasn't over, and they knew it. Sam folded his knife and returned it to his belt. He walked to the bakery without looking back. Inside, the heat from the ovens was suffocating after the cool morning air. The baker, a heavy man named Wendell, who Sam had bought from maybe a dozen times, stared at him with something between confusion and alarm. Sam placed 75 cents on the counter. 3/4 of a silver dollar, a day's wage for skilled labor. He pointed at a loaf of bread, fresh, still warm. Wendell didn't move. "You know what you just did out there? Cut 2 ropes. Sam's voice was level, quiet. The tone he'd used as a marshal when he needed men to understand he meant exactly what he said. "Those women are thieves. Sheriff said so. They were supposed to stand there until sundown tomorrow." "What did they steal?" Wendell's mouth worked. "Don't rightly know, but Cross said they're criminals. Said they've been causing trouble." "Cross says a lot of things." Sam picked up the bread himself, left the money on the counter. "Doesn't make them true." He walked out before Wendell could respond. Outside, the two women still stood by the tree. They were rubbing their wrists, studying him with wary eyes. Sam set the bread on a barrel near the tree, close enough to reach, far enough that he wasn't crowding them. "You can walk," he said. Simple statement. Not a command or a suggestion, just information. He turned toward Prophet, already preparing himself for whatever came next. He'd cut those ropes knowing it would bring attention, knowing Cross would hear about it within the hour. That was fine. Sam had been ready for a reckoning for 5 years. Maybe it was time. The sound of footsteps followed him. He didn't turn, didn't acknowledge it. Just untied, Prophet checked the cinch and mounted with the careful movements of a man whose knees didn't bend quite as easily as they used to. When he finally looked back, the two women stood 15 feet away, not close enough to crowd, not far enough to pretend coincidence. They were watching him with expressions he couldn't quite read. Exhaustion, wariness. Something else that might have been hope, but was too fragile to name. Sam nodded once. Not an invitation. Acknowledgement. He turned Prophet toward home and started riding. They followed. The journey took 3 hours at the pace Sam set, slow enough that two people on foot could keep up without running, fast enough that anyone tracking them would have to work for it. The land opened up as they left Bitter Creek behind. Red rock formations rose like ancient cathedrals. Sage and juniper dotted the earth. Hawks circled overhead, hunting rabbits that were smart enough to stay hidden. Sam stopped twice. Both times he dismounted and offered his canteen without comment. The woman with the braid took it first, drank sparingly, passed it to her sister. Neither thanked him. He didn't expect it. At the second stop, Sam noticed the scar on the second woman's arm, a long mark half hidden by her sleeve. Not a clean cut, something jagged, a rope burn layered over knife work. Old injury, healed months or years ago, but the kind that told a story about violence survived. His jaw tightened. They'd been caught before, and they'd escaped. The Brennan Ranch came into view as the sun reached its zenith. It wasn't much, 160 acres of scrubland with a creek that ran year-round. The cabin was small, maybe 20 feet by 16. Single room with a loft for sleeping, barn barely big enough for 4 horses and some hay. Corral that needed constant mending, vegetable garden that produced more hope than food. But it was his, bought with money earned honestly, built with hands that knew how to measure and cut and join. No one could take it from him unless he let them. Sam dismounted near the fence. The two women stopped at the gate, standing close together but not touching. Waiting. "Water at the well," Sam said, gesturing. "House has more bread. You need rest, there's a room. Door locks from inside." He led Prophet to the barn, giving them space to decide. Inside the barn, he unsaddled the horse-checked hooves for stones, measured out grain. Routine tasks that steadied his nerves. He was aware of every sound from outside. The creak of the well pump, footsteps on gravel, the soft murmur of voices speaking in a language he didn't understand. When he emerged, they were standing near the well, still wary, still ready to run, but they hadn't run yet. Sam walked to the cabin, left the door open behind him, an invitation that didn't require words. He started a fire in the stove, pulled out flour, salt, dried venison, made biscuits the way Thomas had taught him. 3 ingredients, minimal fuss, maximum nourishment. While they baked, he sliced venison, thin, added it to a pot with water and root vegetables from the garden. Simple stew, nothing fancy, but hot and filling. The women appeared in the doorway as the food was nearly ready. Sam gestured to the table. 3 place settings. He'd laid them out without thinking the way he used to when Thomas was alive and would show up unannounced. They sat, far from him, close to the door. Smart. Sam served the stew in tin bowls, set out biscuits, didn't meet their eyes, gave them space to be scared, to be uncertain, to be human. They ate slowly, carefully. People who understood hunger ate like this, never wasting, never certain when the next meal would come. 30 minutes passed in silence, only the scrape of spoons on tin, the crackle of fire, the settling of old wood. Finally, the woman with the braids spoke. "Why did you help us?" Her English was perfect, accent barely noticeable. Educated, Sam realized, or self-taught through careful observation. "Because it was right." Sam's answer was simple. True. That is not enough. Men do not risk themselves for strangers because it is right. Some men do. She studied him, reading his face the way people read trail signs, looking for lies for angles for the hidden price. Your name, she asked. Samuel Brennan. People call me Sam. I am Kiona. This is my sister Istas. Sam nodded. Names were important. They meant trust was beginning even if it was fragile. You were tied up for theft, he said. Not a question. We were tied up for asking questions, Kiona corrected, about things powerful men want forgotten. What kind of questions? Kiona and Istas exchanged a glance. Some silent communication passed between them. Istas gave the smallest nod. Questions about a murder, Kiona said. 22 years ago, our father. Sam's spoon stopped halfway to his mouth. He set it down carefully. Go on. His name was Dakota. He was an Apache scout. A good man, honest, strong. He made a mistake. He trusted a white trader named Harlan Cross. The name hit Sam like a fist. His breath caught. For a moment, he couldn't speak. Cross, he managed. Harlan Cross. You know him? Not a question. Kiona saw it in his face. I know the name. Sam stood abruptly, walked to a drawer, pulled it open. Inside was a leather notebook. Worn edges, pages filled with Thomas's neat handwriting. He brought it back to the table, opened it to a specific page. September 12th, 1878. He turned the notebook so they could read. Kiona leaned forward. Her eyes scanned the words. Sam saw her expression change. Surprise, then something deeper. Recognition. Met with Apache elder today, she read aloud. He spoke of 2 daughters who witnessed their father's murder. A white trader name unknown. The girls were very young, 4 years old. If I can find them, if they remember, we might finally have evidence against Cross. Must locate them. Must bring justice. She looked up at Sam. Who wrote this? My brother, Thomas Brennan. He was a U.S. Marshal. He died 5 years ago. How? They called it an accident. Said his horse threw him, fell down a canyon, but Thomas was born in a saddle. He didn't fall. Kiona closed the notebook gently. He was murdered. Yes. By Cross. Yes. Istas spoke for the first time since entering the house. Her voice was softer than her sister's, but no less steady. Your brother was looking for us. He died trying to help us. Sam nodded, couldn't trust his voice. And now, Kiona said slowly, you help us. Is this revenge? It's debt. Sam met her eyes. Thomas believed in justice. He died believing. I walked away, told myself it was too late to matter. But maybe it's not. Maybe there's still time. Time for what? To finish what he started. The weight of the moment settled over them. 3 people who had lost too much sitting in a cabin that smelled of wood smoke and venison, deciding whether to trust each other with their lives. Kiona reached across the table, held out her hand. Not begging, offering partnership. Sam took it. Her grip was strong, calloused, the hand of someone who'd worked hard and fought harder. Tell me everything, he said. And they did. The story took 2 hours. Kiona did most of the talking with Istas, adding details. Corrections, confirmations. Sam listened without interrupting, his mind cataloging facts, building timelines, identifying evidence that would stand in court. 1861. Their father, Dakota, was hired by a young trader named Harlan Cross. Cross was 32 years old, ambitious, hungry for the kind of wealth that transformed men from nothing into everything. He'd heard rumors of Spanish gold hidden in the Sangre de Cristo Mountains, old treasure buried or lost centuries ago. Cross needed a guide who knew the sacred places, the hidden valleys, the paths that didn't appear on any map. Dakota knew the land. He agreed to help for 30% of any gold found. A fair deal, enough to help his people survive winters that were getting harder. They found gold, not a massive vein but significant, 50 pounds of raw ore, worth $16,000 once refined, a fortune in 1861. Life-changing money. But Cross didn't want to share. He wanted it all. One night while Dakota slept, Cross shot him, single bullet to the head. Then Cross burned the camp to make it look like an accident, a cooking fire that got out of control. A tragedy. These things happened. What Cross didn't know was that Dakota's 4-year-old twin daughters were hiding in a small cave 30 yards away. They'd been playing there in the afternoon exploring and had fallen asleep. They woke to gunfire, saw their father die, saw Cross take a leather map case from Dakota's body, saw him light the fire. They ran. Two small children alone in the wilderness running through the night until they found their mother's sister 2 days later. They tried to tell people. But who believes a 4-year-old, especially an Apache 4-year-old, in a territory that barely considered natives human? The incident was recorded as accidental death, closed, forgotten, except by two girls who spent the next 22 years learning English, learning law, learning how to navigate a system that was designed to exclude them. They grew up, they researched, they discovered that their father had held legal title to 10,000 acres granted by Spanish Crown 2 generations earlier, valid under treaty law. Cross hadn't just stolen gold, he'd stolen their inheritance, built his empire on their land. 6 months ago, they started asking questions in Santa Fe, visiting land offices, requesting old records, making people nervous. That's when the wanted posters appeared. Suddenly they were criminals, thieves, dangerous, a $500 reward for information leading to their capture. They'd been running ever since, hiding, surviving, until 3 days ago when they came to Bitter Creek searching for evidence in Cross's office and got caught. The documents, Sam said when they finished. The legal papers. Where are they? Still at the sacred site, Kiona answered. Hidden with our father's remains. We know where, but it's 3 days' ride north, through country cross controls. And if we retrieve them, what do you mean? Then we have proof of ownership, proof of murder maybe, if the bullet is still in our father's skull, proof that Cross built everything on stolen land and stolen lives. Sam stood paced to the window. Outside, the sun was beginning its descent. Long shadows stretched across his property. His land, small but honest. He'd built it piece by piece, trying to create something Thomas would be proud of. Maybe this was that something. We'll need supplies, he said. Food for a week, maybe 10 days. Ammunition, medical kit, rope. We'll need to train. If Cross's men come, and they will, we need to be ready. We can fight, Kiona said. I'm sure you can, but fighting smart is better than fighting hard. He turned back to them. You'll stay here. Help me work the land, learn the property. We'll prepare properly. Then we go documents and we end this. Istas smiled for the first time. Small, brief, but real. You would risk everything for strangers. You're not strangers. Sam picked up Thomas's notebook, held it up. You're the case my brother died working. That makes you family. The word hung in the air. Family. A thing Sam hadn't had in 5 years. A thing these women had lost 22 years ago. A thing none of them expected to find again. But there it was. Fragile. Tentative. Real. They slept that night in shifts. Sam took the first watch sitting on the porch with his rifle across his knees, listening to the desert breathe. Coyotes sang in the distance. An owl hunted silently overhead. The stars wheeled in their ancient patterns indifferent to human troubles. Sam thought about Thomas, about the last conversation they'd had, about the things left unsaid between brothers who thought they had more time. I'm going to finish it, Sam whispered to the darkness. Whatever it costs. I'm going to finish what you started. The wind carried his words away. The next morning came early. Sam woke Kiona and Istas before dawn. No gentleness. If they were going to survive, they needed to be sharp. Work starts now, he said. We have fences to mend, tools to sharpen, skills to learn. Cross will come, maybe not today, but soon. We need to be ready. They worked from sunrise to sunset, Sam teaching, them learning. He showed Kiona how to measure and cut lumber precisely, how to read a carpenter's square, how to drive nails at the correct angles so they held under stress. She learned fast, her hands adapting to tools with surprising ease. Istas organized the cabin with methodical efficiency. Everything had a place. Everything was accessible. She cleaned tools that had rusted, repaired clothes that had torn, created systems that turned calm into order. On the third day, they heard a noise from the barn. Sam grabbed his rifle, moved silently. Kiona followed with a knife. Istas stayed back, watching their exit. Inside the barn, Boy was trying to steal eggs. Skinny kid, maybe 12 years old with red hair. and freckles wearing clothes that had been patched too many times. He froze when he saw them, 2 eggs clutched in his hands. "Please," he stammered. "I'm just hungry. I'm not trying to cause trouble." Sam studied him, saw the hollows under his cheekbones, the way his ribs showed through his shirt, the desperate hunger in his eyes. "Name," Sam said. "Daniel O'Brien. People call me Danny." "Where's your family?" "Dead. They died in a mine accident last year. Ma got sick this winter. Pneumonia. She didn't make it." "Who's been feeding you?" "Nobody. I do odd jobs, sleep in barns, take what I can when I have to." Sam lowered the rifle, looked at this child who was trying so hard to be invisible to survive, to not be a burden. He thought about Thomas, about lessons in compassion, about how you judged a man not by how he treated his equals, but how he treated those who couldn't fight back. "You can have the eggs," Sam said, "but not stolen. You'll work for them." Danny's eyes widened. "Work. I need help, chores, repairs, learning. You do the work, you get fed, you get a place to sleep, and maybe if you prove yourself, you get taught skills that last longer than hunger." The boy stared at him like he'd offered gold instead of labor. "I'll work hard," Danny said, voice shaking. "I promise. I'll do whatever you need." "I know you will, because if you don't, you're gone. But if you do, you've got a home here. Deal." They shook hands, man and boy, a covenant sealed in calluses and hope. That night, there were 4 at the table instead of 3. Danny ate 3 helpings, apologizing after each one. Sam kept refilling his bowl until the kid finally stopped too full to continue. "Tell me what you're good at," Sam said. "I can read and write, do sums. My dad taught me watchmaking before he died. I know how mechanisms work. Springs, gears, timing." Sam's interest sharpened. "Show me." Danny pulled a broken pocket watch from his pocket. Thomas's watch, the one Sam kept meaning to fix but never had. He'd left it on a shelf, couldn't bear to touch it. "This was on the table," Danny said nervously. "I wasn't stealing it. I just wanted to see if I could fix it. I think the mainspring is broken, but if I had wire and maybe a file—" "Fix it," Sam said. "Materials are in the workshop. If you can make that watch run, you've earned your place here." Danny worked for 3 days straight. Sam watched him when he had time. The boy's hands were small, but precise. He disassembled the watch, completely cleaned each piece, fashioned a new mainspring from scrap wire, reassembled everything with the patience of someone twice his age. On the morning of day 6, Danny wound the watch. It ticked, steady, regular, perfect time. Sam took the watch, held it to his ear, heard the sound Thomas used to hear every day, the measurement of moments passing, the promise that time continued even when everything else stopped. "Thank you," Sam said quietly. "This means more than you know." "I can teach you," Danny offered, "how mechanisms work, how to fix them, how to make them." Sam smiled, first real smile in years. "I'd like that." They were settling into routine when the riders came. Day 8, 2 in the afternoon, 3 men on horseback moving with the practiced ease of people used to intimidating. They weren't lawmen, no badges, but they had guns and authority granted by wealth. Sam saw them coming. Had Danny and Istus moved to the cellar he'd dug for storing vegetables. Kiona stayed at a window inside, bow ready. Sam stepped onto the porch, rifle held loose but present. The lead rider was tall and thin, scar across his chin like a zipper. His name was Pike. Sam had seen his type before. Men who enjoyed violence just enough to be good at it. "Afternoon," Pike said with false courtesy. "Name's Pike. Work for Mr. Cross. Trespassing on private land. Now don't be unfriendly. We're looking for 2 Apache women. Criminals. Theft and assault. Mr. Cross wants them brought back for trial. Haven't seen anyone matching that description." Pike's eyes drifted to the clothesline. 2 dresses hanging in the sun. Women's clothing. He smiled without warmth. "You sure about that?" Sam shifted his stance slightly. Small movement. Enough to demonstrate readiness without being overtly threatening. "I'm sure, and this is private property. You need a warrant to search. You have one. Don't need a warrant. Just need cooperation. Then you're out of luck. Leave. Now." Pike's smile faded. "Cross can make life very difficult for you." "Cross can try, But I was Deputy U.S. Marshal for 10 years. I know the law, know what you can and can't do. And right now, what you can't do is be on my land without permission. So either produce a warrant or start riding. The tension stretched. Pike's companions shifted in their saddles, hands moving toward guns. Sam didn't move, didn't blink, just stood there with the calm certainty of a man who'd faced down worse. Pike spat into the dirt. This isn't over. Never thought it was. They rode off, but Sam knew it was just beginning. That night, he gathered everyone in the cabin. Kiona, Istas, Danny. 4 people who'd been strangers 10 days ago and were now something else. Something that didn't have a name yet, but felt like it might be permanent. Cross knows you're here, Sam said. He'll send more men. Better men. We need to be ready. He spread a hand-drawn map on the table. This ranch is 160 acres. Quarter section. I filed legal claim in '79, paid the $18 fee, lived here 5 years. I have patent deed. Cross can't legally take it, but he can make us wish he could. Danny raised his hand like he was in school. Sam nodded at him. Can he burn it? Yes, that's the real threat. So we build defenses, stone wall around the well, fire breaks around the cabin and barn, multiple escape routes. We prepare like we're at war, because we are. Kiona studied the map. How long before we go for the documents? 2 weeks. We need training. We need supplies. We need to be sharp. And if they attack before then we defend, and we make sure at least one of us survives to finish this. The words were stark. No false comfort, just reality. Istas spoke softly. Why do you do this? Risk everything for people you barely know. Sam looked at Thomas's watch on the table, ticking steadily, marking time that his brother would never see. Because someone has to, he said. Because if not me, then who? Because I've spent 5 years hiding from responsibility, and I'm tired. I'm tired of being afraid, tired of being small. My brother died trying to do the right thing. Maybe it's time I live trying to do the same. He stood. Tomorrow we start training. Real training, shooting, fighting, thinking. We're going to become something they don't expect. Not victims, not targets, a family that fights for itself. The word family echoed. No one corrected it. No one questioned it. It was simply true. They trained for 2 weeks. Sunup to sundown, Sam taught Danny to shoot. Started with the basics. Breath control, sight picture, trigger squeeze. The boy had talent, steady hands from watchmaking, patience from poverty. Within days, he could hit targets at 25 feet. Sam taught Kiona advanced carpentry. She already knew the basics. He showed her the details that separated adequate work from excellence. How to read wood grain to predict strength. How to join pieces so they'd hold for decades. How to build things that outlasted the builder. Istas learned medical care. Sam had books from his martial days. She read them obsessively, then practiced on small injuries. Danny scraped knuckles, Kiona's cut finger, learning to clean wounds, apply pressure, recognize infection. They worked. They trained. They became competent, then proficient, then deadly. On day 13, Danny presented Sam with a gift. 3 alarm systems fashioned from old mousetraps and bells. Simple mechanisms that would ring if someone cut the fence wire. If they come at night, Danny explained, we'll hear them. Sam tested them. They worked perfectly. He pulled Danny into a rough hug. You're a brilliant kid. You know that. Danny's face flushed with pride. That night, Kiona found Sam outside watching stars. She stood beside him in comfortable silence. Thank you, she said finally. For what? For seeing us as human. Not many do. Their blindness is their loss. What happens after if we get the documents, if we win? Sam thought about it. I guess we live, build something that lasts. Together, the question hung in the air, loaded with implications neither of them was quite ready to speak aloud. If you want, Sam said carefully, I want. Kiona's voice was steady, certain. I want to stop running, want to have a home, want to trust someone enough to sleep without one eye open. You trust me, she turned to face him. In the starlight, her face was all shadows and angles, beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with softness. I trust you, she said, with my life, with my sister's life, with whatever comes next. Sam felt something shift in his chest. Not attraction exactly, though. That was there. Something deeper. Partnership. The recognition that some people fit together not because they're the same, but because they complement each other's sharp edges. Then we'll build something, he said, after, together. They stood there until the cold drove them inside. Tomorrow would bring challenges, dangers, possibly death. But tonight they had each other, and sometimes that was enough. 3:45 in the morning. Darkness absolute except for stars scattered like broken glass across the sky. The air had that peculiar stillness that came just before dawn when the world held its breath between night and day. The bell rang, not loud. Danny had designed it that way. A soft chime just enough to wake someone listening for it. Sam's eyes opened immediately, the old martial reflex kicking in before his conscious mind fully engaged. He was on his feet in seconds, rifle in hand, Colt revolver holstered at his hip. Kiona emerged from her room at the same moment. She'd learned to sleep light. 22 years of being hunted would do that. Her bow was already strung quiver on her back. They moved to the window without speaking, their coordination born from 2 weeks of constant proximity. The ranch spread before them in shades of gray and black. Fence lines barely visible. Barn, a darker shadow against dark sky. And there on the northern ridge, two shapes. Men on horseback, not moving closer, just watching. How long? Kiona whispered. Sam's eyes tracked the ridge, reading the landscape the way some men read books. Danny's bell rings when fence wire is cut or moved. They tripped it maybe 5 minutes ago. Been sitting there since studying us. They know about the alarm. Now they do. Istis appeared behind them, Danny close at her heels. The boy's face was pale but determined, holding the rifle Sam had given him with white-knuckled intensity. Should I shoot? Danny asked, voice barely audible. No, Sam kept his eyes on the ridge. They're not attacking. They're gathering intelligence, learning our patterns, how we respond to threats, how long it takes us to wake up, whether we panic or stay controlled. So what do? Nothing. Let them think we don't know they're there. Danny, your alarm worked perfectly, but don't ring it again unless you absolutely have to. Element of surprise is more valuable than early warning if they think we're unaware. They stood silent for 20 minutes. The two riders remained motionless, then finally turned and disappeared over the ridge. Sam didn't relax until they had been gone for 10 minutes. They'll be back, he said. Maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow, but soon and with more men. He turned to face the others. In the pre-dawn gloom, their faces were serious, older than their years. A 12-year-old who'd lost everything. Two 26-year-old women who'd spent their lives running. And Sam, 40 years old and finally ready to stop running himself. And council meeting, Sam said. Now, we need a plan. They gathered around the kitchen table as the first gray light began seeping through the windows. Sam spread his hand-drawn map across the scarred wood. He'd updated it over the past 2 weeks, adding details, marking sight lines, identifying vulnerabilities. We have 3 problems. Sam began, his voice taking on the tone of a military officer briefing troops. Physical security, legal standing, and supply lines. We solve all 3 or we fail. He pointed to the map's perimeter. This ranch is 160 acres. That's a quarter section under the Homestead Act of 1862. I filed legal claim in '79, paid the $18 filing fee, lived here continuously for 5 years. Last year, I received my patent deed from the federal government. That means I own this land outright. Cross cannot legally take it from me. But he can burn it, Danny said quietly. Exactly, which brings us to physical security. Sam traced the fence line with his finger. Current perimeter is simple barbed wire. 3-strand steel posts every 12 feet. It stops cattle. It doesn't stop men. We need a secondary barrier inside the fence. Stone wall 3 feet high. Won't stop bullets, but it'll stop horses from charging straight through. Kiona leaned forward, studying the map. How long to build? With 5 people working 10 hours a day, 2 weeks for 200 feet protecting the cabin and barn. We have plenty of stone from the creek bed. It's just labor and time. Time we may not have, Istis observed. I know, but defense without escape is a trap. We also need covered positions, clear sight lines, and multiple exits. The well is exposed. We build a well house, 4-inch thick, timber-angled roof to deflect rifle fire. Someone can defend water access while others retreat if needed. Danny was taking notes, his neat handwriting filling a small notebook. Sam noticed and felt a surge of pride. The boy was smart, adaptable, exactly the kind of person who survived when others didn't. Legal standing, Sam continued, that's where Istas comes in. Istas straightened, slightly clearly surprised to be directly addressed. You've been reading, Sam said. It wasn't a question. He'd noticed her with his old law books, studying by lamplight, long after everyone else slept. Tell them what you've learned. Istas took a breath, organizing her thoughts. The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, signed February 2nd, 1848, ended the Mexican-American War. Article 8 of that treaty explicitly protects all property rights held by Mexican citizens before the war. Our family's land grant predates the treaty by over 80 years. Under federal law, it supersedes any claim Cross has made since then. But we need the original documents, Kiona added. Correct. Without physical proof, it's our word against Cross's lawyers. With those documents authenticated and registered with a federal court, we have incontrovertible ownership of 10,000 acres, including most of Bitter Creek. Sam nodded. Which is why Cross wants you dead. You're not just witnesses to murder. You're legal claimants to his entire empire. So we get the documents, Danny said with the certainty of youth. We go to the mountains, we get them, we come back. It's not that simple, Sam said gently. The sacred site is 3 days' ride north through country Cross controls. He'll have men watching trails. Even if we get there, getting back alive is another challenge entirely. So what do? Sam looked at each of them in turn. We prepare for the worst. But first we solve problem 3, supplies. He pulled out a sheet of paper covered in calculations. A trip to the mountains and back, including time to search, means 3 weeks minimum. 5 people, 3 weeks, that's 420 meals. Figure half pound of food per meal per person, that's 210 pounds of provisions, plus ammunition, medical supplies, rope tools. Cost, Kiona asked. Roughly $30 for everything we can't hunt or forage. I have that much saved, but I can't buy it in Bitter Creek. Cross owns the general store. The moment I purchase that much food, he'll know we're planning something. Los Cerrillos, Istas said. Mining town 40 miles east. Cross has no influence there. I could go. A single Apache woman buying supplies draws less attention than all of us together. Alone, Kiona's voice sharpened. Absolutely not. She wouldn't be alone, Danny interjected. I'd go with her. We'd look like mother and son traveling. Less suspicious than a woman alone or a group. Sam considered it. Strategically sound. Risky, but manageable. Still, sending a 26-year-old woman and a 12-year-old boy into potential danger made his stomach clench. If you go, Sam said carefully, you go armed, you go smart, and you come back at the first sign of trouble. We need supplies, but we need you alive more. Istas met his eyes. We'll be careful. Not good enough. You'll be paranoid. You'll assume everyone is a threat until proven otherwise. You'll keep moving, never stay anywhere long enough to be cornered. And you'll carry this. He pulled a small Remington Derringer from a drawer. 2-shot 41 caliber. Effective range is about 10 feet. Past that, it's useless. But within 10 feet, it'll stop a man permanently. Danny, you know how to use it? No, sir. Then I'll teach you, both of you, because I'm not sending you out there helpless. The next 3 days were intensive training. Sam took Danny to the makeshift range behind the barn. 5 targets at varying distances. 25, 50, 75, 100, and 125 feet. Rule 1, Sam said, standing behind Danny, hands guiding the boy's grip. Always assume a gun is loaded, even when you know it's not. I've seen 3 men die because they thought a gun was empty. Danny's hands trembled slightly on the small pistol. Sam placed his own hands over the boy, steadying them. It's just a tool, Sam said quietly, like a hammer or a saw. It's got one job, putting a piece of metal exactly where you aim it. You control it. It doesn't control you. Breathe. Danny inhaled, exhaled. His shoulders dropped slightly. Good. Now this gun has 2 shots. That's it. No reload in a fight, so you don't waste them. You wait until you're sure, until the threat is real and close. Then you aim center mass, the biggest target, and you squeeze. Not pull, squeeze, like you're trying not to wake someone. They practiced for 4 hours. First day, Danny missed all 10 shots. His hands shook, his breath. Came fast, his eyes squeezed shut at the moment of firing. Second day, 3 hits out of 10. Progress. Third day, 7 out of 10, all within a 6-inch circle at 15 feet. That'll do, Sam said, genuine pride in his voice. You're not a gunfighter. You're a boy protecting someone he cares about. If you have to use this, you wait until they're close enough to see their eyes. Then you fire twice and you run like hell. Understand? Yes, sir. And Danny, Sam gripped the boy's shoulder. Shooting a man isn't like shooting a target. When it's flesh instead of wood, your hand will shake. Your heart will pound. You'll want to hesitate. Don't. If the moment comes when you have to fire, it means they've already decided to hurt you or Istis. At that point, mercy gets you killed. You protect her no matter what. Clear. Danny swallowed hard. Clear. While Danny learned firearms, Sam worked with Kiona on hand-to-hand combat. She was already skilled. Apache women learned to fight from childhood practical skills for a life where violence was always possible. But Sam had techniques from his martial training, things most people never saw coming. They sparred in the yard, circling each other on hard-packed dirt. Kiona was fast, incredibly fast. Her first lunge caught Sam off guard, a knife hand strike aimed at his throat that he barely deflected. Good, he grunted, resetting his stance. Again. She came at him 3 more times. Each time he defended, but barely. She was testing him, probing for weaknesses, learning his patterns. My turn, Sam said. He moved. Not fast, but efficient. Decades of experience translated into economy of motion. He feinted left, went right, hooked her ankle, controlled her descent, so she hit the ground without injury. Kiona looked up at him, surprised. How? You're faster than me, younger, stronger in some ways. But I've been doing this for 20 years. I know what people do before they do it. Watch. He helped her up, positioned them back in starting stance. When you lunge, your right shoulder drops slightly. Tells me you're committing to that side. Your weight shifts to your front foot. Tells me you can't retreat easily. Your eyes focus on your target. Tells me you're not aware of your surroundings. He demonstrated in slow motion. Keep your shoulders level. Weight distributed. Eyes tracking everything, not just me. Make me guess which way you're going until the last possible second. They worked for 3 hours. By the end, Kiona was landing hits. Not many, but enough. More importantly, she was learning to read Sam's movements, anticipate his strategies, use his strength against him. There was a moment, both of them grappling, faces inches apart, breathing hard when something shifted. Not attraction, though that was present. Something deeper. Trust. The knowledge that they could rely on each other when it mattered most. You're a good teacher, Kiona said softly. You're a better student. Sam released her, step back. Professional distance restored, but something had changed between them. A line crossed that couldn't be uncrossed. On the morning of day 15, Istas and Danny prepared to leave. They had a small wagon pulled by 2 horses, empty, except for supplies for the journey itself. $30 in mixed silver coins hidden in Danny's boot. The Derringer in Istas's coat. A story prepared about visiting family in Los Lunas. Sam checked the wagon harness 3 times. Checked the horse's hooves. Checked the wheels for cracks. Anything to delay the moment when he'd have to watch them ride away. Sam, Istas said gently, we'll be fine. I know. He didn't know. Couldn't know. But saying it helped. Danny climbed onto the wagon seat, looking both terrified and determined. Sam walked over, placed a hand on the boy's knee. Remember what I taught you, Sam said. Don't shoot unless I have to, if I have to shoot twice and run. Good, and protect Istas, no matter what. Good man, Sam stepped back to Istas, he said. 3 days there, 1 day shopping, 3 days back. 7 days total. If you're not back in 10, I'm coming after you. We'll be back in 7, Istas promised. They rolled out. Sam and Kiona stood watching until the wagon disappeared beyond the eastern ridge. The ranch felt suddenly empty. Vulnerable. Just the 2 of them against whatever came next. They'll be okay, Kiona said. They have to be. Sam turned back toward the cabin. Come on, we've got work to do. They worked in silence for most of the day, building the stone wall, mixing mortar from creek clay and sand, hauling rocks that weighed 40, 50, 60 pounds each. back-breaking labor that left no energy for conversation. As the sun began its descent, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, they stopped to rest. Sitting on the partially completed wall, sharing water from a single canteen, comfortable in the quiet. "What will you do?" Kiona asked suddenly. "After, if we win." Sam considered the question. "Keep building, I suppose. Not just structures. Maybe build a community. A place where people are judged by character instead of skin color. Where Apache and white and Mexican can work together without suspicion." "That's a dream." "Maybe, but dreams are how change starts. Someone has to imagine it before it can be real." Kiona looked at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "You're different than most white men I've known." "How so?" "You listen. Most people talk at us, never to us. They've already decided what we are before we open our mouths. You waited to learn." "That's not virtue, that's common sense. How else would I learn anything?" She smiled, rare expression that transformed her face from beautiful to breathtaking. "See, you don't even realize how unusual that is?" Before Sam could respond, horses approached. Fast, multiple riders. He was on his feet instantly, rifle in hand. Kiona knocked an arrow in one fluid motion. 4 men, not the same group from before. These rode with military precision, faces hard, eyes calculating. They reined up just outside the property line, a calculated insult. Close enough to threaten, far enough to claim innocence. The leader was older, maybe 50, with gray beard and cold eyes that had seen too much and felt too little. He raised one hand in a gesture that might have been greeting or warning. "Brennan," he called out. "Name's Cooper. We're not here for trouble. Just want to talk." "Then talk from there. Don't need you closer." "Fair enough." Cooper dismounted his men staying on horseback. "We've been hired to bring in 2 Apache women, criminals. Theft, assault, probably murder. Mr. Cross is offering $500 for information. 1,000 if they're brought in alive." "Haven't seen anyone fitting that description." Cooper smiled without warmth. "Now that's interesting, because my swears he saw 2 women's dresses hanging on your line when he rode by yesterday." Sam kept his expression neutral. "I do laundry. Is that illegal now?" "Course not, but harboring fugitives is. Federal crime, Brennan. 15 years in Yuma Territorial Prison. That's a long time for a man your age." "Show me the warrant." "Don't have one yet, but we will." "Then we have nothing to discuss. You're on my property without permission. Leave." Cooper's smile faded. "You're making a mistake. Cross has resources you can't imagine. Money, lawyers, politicians. He'll crush you and everyone around you." "Maybe, but today's not that day. Today you're just trespassers. So either produce legal authority or start riding." The standoff lasted 30 seconds that felt like 30 minutes. Finally, Cooper remounted. But before leaving, he called back, "Your brother Thomas was stubborn too. Look where it got him." Sam's finger tightened on the trigger. Every instinct screamed to fire, to end this threat before it grew larger. But that was what they wanted. An excuse, a justification. He forced himself to breathe, to relax, to not take the bait. "Get off my land," Sam said quietly, voice level, deadly calm. They rode away, but the threat hung in the air like smoke. That night, Sam couldn't sleep. He sat on the porch, rifle across his knees, watching shadows that might or might not be threats. Kiona joined him after an hour, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders against the chill. "You should rest," Sam said. "So should you. Can't keep thinking about Danny and Istis out there, about what Cooper said, about how this ends." "How does it end?" "2 ways. We get the documents, present them to a federal court, and Cross goes to prison. Or we die trying and he wins." "And there's a third option," Kiona said softly. "We get the documents and Cross kills us before we reach a courtroom." Sam had thought the same thing, hadn't wanted to voice it. "That's why we need insurance, someone who knows the full story, someone who can carry it forward if we fall." "Who?" "I don't know yet, but we'll find someone. We have to." They sat in silence until dawn, 2 people who'd learned not to trust easily, slowly learning to trust each other. 40 miles away, Istas and Danny were having problems. Los Cerrillos had been easy enough. A mining town that saw hundreds of strangers every week, no one looked twice at an Apache woman and a red-haired boy buying supplies. They'd spent $23 on provisions, saved $2 for a real meal at an actual restaurant, the first Danny had ever experienced. The boy ate steak and potatoes like he'd never seen food before, eyes wide with wonder at being served instead of scavenging. Istis watched him with something like maternal affection, though she'd never say it aloud. "He's good to you," Istis said eventually. "Sam." Danny looked up, mouth full, swallowed. "He's like what I thought a father should be. Teaches me, doesn't hit me, treats me like I matter." "You do matter." "I know that now, didn't always." Danny took another bite, chewed thoughtfully. "What's it like having a sister who's exactly like you?" Istis considered the question. "We're not exactly alike. Kiona is fire. I'm water. She fights, I think. Together, we're balanced. Alone, we're vulnerable. That's what family is, isn't it? Being stronger together." "Yes, I think that's exactly what it is." The ride back started well. They made good time, the wagon loaded with supplies, horses fresh. But 10 miles from Los Carrillos, Istas noticed something wrong. "Danny," she said quietly, "don't look now, but there are two riders behind us. They've been keeping exact distance for the last hour." Danny's hand moved toward the derringer hidden in his coat. "What do we do?" "Nothing yet. Could be coincidence, but if they're still there in another mile, we assume threat." They traveled another mile. The riders remained. Same distance, same pace. Too deliberate to be accidental. "They're tracking us," Istis said. "When we reach the canyon pass ahead, they'll make their move. Narrow space, no escape routes. Classic ambush point." "So we don't go through the canyon." "Smart boy. There's a side trail. Rougher terrain, but safer. We take it, see if they follow." They veered onto the narrow trail. Immediately the riders accelerated. No more pretense. This was a chase. "Hold on," Istis commanded, snapping the reins. The horses broke into a gallop. The wagon bounced over rocks and ruts, supplies shifting wheels threatening to break. Behind them, the pursuers closed distance. Two men, rough-looking, heavily armed. One had a distinctive scar across his cheek, visible even at distance. The scarred man shouted something. Words lost in wind and hoofbeats. They reached a narrow section, rocks on both sides, barely room for the wagon. The pursuers were 50 yards back now, closing fast. "Danny," Istis said, voice steady despite the danger. "I need you to be brave. Can you do that?" "Yes, ma'am." "Good. When I say you grab the reins, I'm going to slow them down." "How?" Istis didn't answer. She maneuvered the wagon into the narrowest point, then pulled hard on the brake. The wagon slewed sideways, blocking the entire passage. "Now drive." She threw the reins at Danny, grabbed her knife, jumped from the wagon. "Istis, no." But she was already moving. The first rider came through the gap. Istis dodged left, grabbed his stirrup, pulled hard. He fell, hitting ground with a crunch. Horse trampled him as it ran past. Second rider tried to aim his pistol. Danny, acting on instinct and training, pulled the derringer and fired. Not at the man, at the rocks beside his horse's head. The shot echoed like a cannon in the narrow space. Rock shards exploded. The horse reared, terrified, throwing its rider. "Go, go, go!" Istis ran, leaped onto the moving wagon. Danny had already released the brake horses, running full out, fear driving them faster than whips ever could. They raced for 3 miles before slowing. Behind them, no pursuit. Either the men were too injured or too smart to continue alone. Danny's hands shook on the reins. Istis gently took them from him, brought the horses to a walk. They were both breathing hard, adrenaline making everything feel too bright, too sharp. "You did good," Istis said. "I almost killed a man." "But you didn't. You made a smart choice. Scared them instead. That takes more courage than killing." "Really?" "Really." She pulled him into a brief hug. "Sam would be proud. I'm proud." They rode in silence for another hour. The sun was setting when they finally saw the ranch in the distance. Home, safety, family. Sam and Kiona spotted them approaching and ran out to meet them. Sam practically dragged Danny off the wagon, checking him for injuries, asking rapid questions. "We're okay," Danny said. "Mostly, there was trouble, but we handled it." As they unloaded supplies and Istis recounted the encounter, Sam's expression grew increasingly grim. When she finished, he was silent for a long moment. "They knew," he said finally. "Cross knew you'd go for supplies. had men watching roads out of Bitter Creek. This wasn't random. It was planned. Which means what? Kiona asked. Means he's escalating. Means time is running out. Sam looked at the loaded wagon, at the supplies that had nearly cost 2 lives. We leave tomorrow, dawn. Can't wait 2 weeks anymore. We get those documents now or we don't get them at all. Tomorrow, then, Istis's eyes widened. But we're not ready. We'll never be ready. But we're trained, we're armed, we're together. That'll have to be enough. That night, they held final council. Sam spread the map one last time, plotting routes, identifying landmarks, discussing contingencies. 3 days north through Sangre de Cristo Mountains, Sam said. Sacred site is at 9,000 feet elevation. Cold, dangerous terrain. We pack light but smart. Food for 7 days. Ammunition, medical kit, climbing rope. Everyone carries their own load. And if we're followed, Danny asked, then we use the terrain against them. Mountains favor the prepared. We'll be prepared. And if something goes wrong, Istis pressed. If you and Kiona don't come back, Sam looked at Danny and Istis seriously. Then you take Thomas's notebook and everything we've gathered. You ride to Albuquerque Federal Court. You tell them everything. Make sure this doesn't end with us. We should all go, Danny argued. Safety in numbers. No, someone has to defend the ranch. If Cross attacks while we're gone and finds it empty, he'll burn everything. You two hold the line here. We'll be back in 7 days. They argued for another hour, but Sam was immovable. Finally, they agreed. Danny and Istis would stay. Sam and Kiona would go. The pre-dawn darkness was absolute when Sam and Kiona prepared to leave. 2 horses packed light but efficient. They debated taking Prophet Sam's old gelding, but decided fresher mounts were worth more than familiarity. Danny stood on the porch trying to look brave and failing. Sam walked over, put both hands on the boy's shoulders. You're the man of the house now, Sam said. That's not a small thing. It means responsibility. It means making hard choices. It means protecting what matters. Can you do that? Danny's voice cracked. I'll try. That's all anyone can do. Sam pulled him into a hug, rough, brief, meaningful. I'm proud of you, Danny. Your father would be proud too. Come back, Danny whispered. Please come back. I'll do my best. Sam turned to Istis. If trouble comes, don't be a hero. You and Danny get to safety. The ranch can be rebuilt. You can't. The same applies to you, Istis replied. Don't die for documents. Come back and we'll find another way. There is no other way. You know that. She did. They all did. This was the only chance, the only move left that might checkmate Cross before he checkmated them. Sam and Kiona mounted. The eastern sky was just beginning to lighten that deep blue that comes before true dawn. They rode out without looking back. Looking back was bad luck. Looking back was doubt. The ranch disappeared behind them. Ahead lay mountains, danger, and maybe justice. Or maybe just death in a cold cave far from home. Either way, they rode toward it together. And somehow that made the fear bearable. The first day's ride took them through country Sam had never seen. The land rose gradually scrubland, giving way to pine forest red earth, turning to rocky soil studded with granite outcroppings. The air grew thinner, colder, carrying the scent of snow from peaks still invisible in the distance. Kiona rode ahead, navigating by childhood memory and instinct. 22 years since she'd been here, but her body remembered. The way certain rocks caught morning light, the shape of a distant ridge, the sound water made flowing over specific stones in the creek they followed. They stopped at midday to rest the horses and eat. Dried venison and hardtack washed down with water so cold it made Sam's teeth ache. He studied Kiona as she ate, noting the tension in her shoulders, the way her eyes constantly scanned their surroundings. What is it? He asked. We're being followed. Sam's hand moved toward his rifle. How long? Since we left the ranch, maybe before. I wasn't sure at first, but there's someone back there, staying just out of sight. Skilled tracker, knows how to use terrain. One person. I think so. Horse moves light, single rider, not trying to catch us, just observing. Sam considered this. One tracker meant either scout for a larger force or someone with different intentions. Could be Cross's man, could be someone else. Either way, we need to know. Kiona stood, brushed crumbs from her pants. Tonight we set a trap. Find out who's following and why. They rode for another 6 hours, Kiona deliberately choosing an easy trail to follow. As dusk approached, they made camp in a small clearing with good sight lines. Built a fire, made it look natural like two travelers settling for the night. Then they hid. Sam took position behind a fallen log 30 yards east. Kiona concealed herself in rocks to the west. They waited as darkness fell and the fire burned down to coals. Waited while the moon rose, painting everything in silver and shadow. Waited with the patience of people who'd learned that survival often meant doing nothing at all. 2 hours past midnight, the tracker appeared. An old man, maybe 70, moving through the forest with impossible silence for someone his age. Apache, clearly though, he wore a mix of traditional clothing and settler garb. His face was deeply lined, weathered by decades of sun and wind. But his eyes, when they caught moonlight, were sharp and alert. He approached the camp, cautiously studying the ground, reading the story written in boot prints and disturbed earth. Sam saw the moment the old man realized the camp was a decoy. The slight stiffening of his posture, the way his hand moved toward a knife at his belt. Sam stood rifle pointed but not aimed. "Don't move!" The old man froze, didn't raise his hands, didn't show fear, just stood there waiting. Kiona emerged from the rocks, bow drawn. She moved into better light and Sam saw her expression change. Shock, recognition, disbelief. "Uncle Naichi!" Her voice cracked. "We thought you were dead." The old man's weathered face split into a smile. "Many people thought so. I encourage the belief. Safer that way." Kiona lowered her bow, walked closer, studying him like he might be a ghost. "You disappeared after Father died. We looked for you. For years we looked. I know, I watched you look, watched you grow, watched you survive." Naichi's smile faded. "I was a coward, Kiona. The night your father died, I was there. Not close, but near enough to see. I saw Cross shoot Dakota. I could have stopped it, could have testified. But I ran, hid, let fear rule me. For 22 years, Kiona's voice was hard, for 22 years I carried shame, but I also carried purpose. I knew someday you would come for justice. I waited, prepared, gathered information Cross thought was buried." He looked at Sam. "You are Samuel Brennan, brother of Thomas the Marshal who almost caught Cross 5 years ago. You knew Thomas." "I spoke with him, told him about Kiona and Istus, told him where to find evidence. 3 days later, he was dead. I knew then that Cross had eyes everywhere, that anyone who helped would die. So I stayed hidden, watching, waiting for the right moment." Sam lowered his rifle. "And now is that moment. Now is all we have left. Cross is moving fast. He knows you're coming for the documents. He's hired professional killers, not Pike and his fools, real hunters, former military. They left Santa Fe 2 days ago, heading north." "How many?" Sam asked. "3 that I saw. Could be more. But 3 is enough if they're good." Kiona sat down heavily. "So we ride into an ambush. Unless we're smarter than they expect." Naichi joined her, moving with the careful deliberateness of age. "The sacred site has 2 main trail, wide and easy. They'll watch that. But there's a second way. Cliff path, narrow, dangerous. In darkness, it's nearly suicide." "Then we take it in daylight," Sam said. "No, daylight they'll see you from miles away. Darkness is your only chance. Difficult, yes. Maybe impossible. But certain death is worse than possible death." Sam and Kiona exchanged glances. They'd learned to communicate without words, reading intent in posture and expression. Sam saw acceptance in her eyes, not enthusiasm, just recognition that this was the only play left. "You'll guide us?" Sam asked Naichi. "I'll try. My eyes are not what they were, but I remember the path, and I've walked it recently, making sure it's still passable." "Why?" Kiona asked. "Why help now after all these years?" Naichi looked at his hands, gnarled and spotted with age. "Because I'm dying, sickness in my chest. Doctor in Santa Fe says maybe 6 months, maybe less, Mom. I cannot undo my cowardice, cannot bring back Dakota or Thomas Brennan. But I can help you finish what they started. That is something, small but something." The truth of it settled over them. This dying old man trying to redeem a lifetime of regret in whatever time remained. Sam understood that impulse, had lived it for 5 years. Then we go together, Sam said. 3 of us. Better odds than 2. They traveled another day and a half, climbing higher into the Sangre de Cristo range. The name meant blood of Christ, supposedly for the way sunset painted the peaks red. But as they ascended into cold, thin air, Sam thought it might also reference all the blood spilled in these mountains over centuries. Spanish conquistadors, Apache warriors, miners and trappers and settlers. The land remembered violence even if people chose to forget. The third day, they reached the cliff path Nietzsche had described. It was every bit as terrifying as promised. A narrow ledge, maybe 18 inches wide at best, carved into sheer rock face. 200-foot drop to jagged stones below. Wind howling through the gap, strong enough to push a man off balance. We wait for full dark, Nietzsche said. Less wind at night, and if you cannot see the drop, it's less frightening. Sam wasn't sure that logic held, but he didn't argue. They rested until 10 at night, then began. Sam went first, testing each footstep using a walking stick to probe ahead. Kiona followed, leading her horse by the reins. Nietzsche brought up the rear with Sam's mount. Progress was measured in feet, not miles. Each step deliberate, careful. Any mistake meant death swift and final. The darkness was absolute, the drop invisible but felt. Sam's heart hammered against his ribs. Sweat ran down his back despite the cold. Halfway across, his walking stick found nothing. He stopped, probed more carefully. The ledge had crumbled away, leaving a gap of maybe 4 feet. Gap, he called back softly. 4 feet, maybe a bit more. Can the horses jump it? Kiona's voice came from darkness behind him. In daylight, maybe. In this? Sam shook his head, realized no one could see it. I don't know. We cannot go back, Nietzsche said. Trail behind has also crumbled. I felt it give way as we passed. Forward is our only option. Sam understood then. This was it. The moment where courage or cowardice defined everything that followed. He could freeze, paralyzed by fear, and condemn them all. Or he could move. He uncoiled rope from his pack, tied one end around his waist. I'm going to jump. If I make it, I'll secure the rope. Use it to stabilize the horses as they jump. Sam, you can't see where you're landing, Kiona protested. I know, but staying here isn't an option. He tied the other end of the rope to a rock outcropping, tested it, held firm. If I fall, the rope should catch me. You can pull me up. Should isn't good enough. It's what we have. He stepped back as far as the narrow ledge allowed, maybe 3 feet, not enough for a proper running start. He'd have to jump from near standing position, trusting strength and aim more than momentum. Sam took 3 deep breaths, centered himself, thought about Thomas, about Danny waiting at the ranch, about Kiona, who'd survived impossible odds for 22 years and deserved to see justice done. He jumped. For one terrible moment, he was airborne, nothing beneath him but 200 feet of empty air. His boots hit rock, solid rock. He stumbled forward, caught himself, stood gasping. Made it, he called back. Rope is secure. Send the horses. Kiona blindfolded her, Mare whispered to it in Apache. Words Sam didn't understand, but the tone was clear. Trust. Partnership. The promise that together they could do impossible things. She backed the horse up, then urged it forward. The animal hesitated at the gap, but Kiona's voice pushed it on. It jumped, landed awkwardly but safely. Sam grabbed the reins, steadied it. Good girl, he murmured. Brave girl. His gelding was more problematic. The horse refused, planted its hooves. No amount of coaxing would make it budge. Leave him, Sam called. We can get back another way. But Kiona had spent 2 weeks learning from Sam, learning patience method, the way to solve problems that seemed impossible. She spent 20 minutes talking to that horse, not commands, conversation. The kind of gentle persistence that wore down resistance through sheer caring. Finally, the gelding jumped. Nearly didn't make it. Hind legs scrabbled at the edge. But Kiona hauled on the reins, Sam pulled the safety rope, and together they got the animal across. Nietzsche came last. The old man moved with the careful certainty of someone who'd made peace with death. He jumped the gap as easily as crossing a stream landing light, despite his years. They rested on the far side, all of them shaking with relief and adrenaline. They'd done it, crossed the impossible path. Behind them, the gap that would stop anyone following. How far now? Sam asked. 1 mile, Naichi answered. Maybe less. The sacred site is in a valley just ahead. Natural amphitheater. Cave at the north end. That is where Dakota rests. They approached the final stretch as dawn began to break. Gray light revealed a landscape of stunning beauty. The valley was exactly as Naichi described. Ring of cliffs floor covered in grass and wildflowers even this late in the season. A stream ran through the center water clear enough to see stones at the bottom. The cave entrance was marked with petroglyphs, ancient symbols some thousands of years old. Others more recent, including marks Sam recognized from Thomas's notebook. His brother had been here, had stood in this exact spot seeking the same justice they sought now. Kiona dismounted, approached the cave entrance with reverence. She spoke in Apache words Sam didn't understand but could feel the weight of: prayer, apology, promise. Inside the cave was cool and dry, perfect preservation. Along the back wall, skulls arranged in careful order. Apache tradition honoring the dead, among them one marked with a name carved in bone. Dakota. Kiona knelt before her father's remains. Her hand trembled as she touched the skull. 22 years of grief, rage, and determination poured out in silent tears. Sam and Naichi waited outside, giving her privacy. The old man looked tired. Dying tired, the kind that came from organs failing rather than just fatigue. You were brave coming back, Sam said quietly. I was selfish, Naichi corrected. Wanted to die having done one good thing. That is not bravery. That is bargaining with ancestors. Still counts, Naichi smiled. You are kind man, Samuel Brennan. Your brother was too. World needs more like you. Kiona emerged carrying a metal box, rusted but intact. She opened it with shaking hands. Inside, wrapped in oiled leather, were the documents. Spanish land grant from 1767. Mexican confirmation from 1821. Dakota's will designating Kiona and Istis as heirs. A survey map showing exact boundaries. But there was something else. A U.S. Marshal's badge, tarnished but unmistakable. Sam's breath caught. He lifted the badge with trembling fingers. On the buffet engraved letters, T. Brennan, 1878. Thomas was here, Sam whispered. He found this place, found the evidence. Beneath the badge, a note in Thomas's distinctive handwriting. To whoever finds this, I am Thomas Brennan, United States Marshal. I have seen proof that Harlan Cross murdered Dakota of the Mescalero Apache and stole land through fraud. I am taking copies of these documents to federal court in Albuquerque. If I do not survive, please complete my mission. Justice delayed is justice denied. September 14th, 1878. Sam read it 3 times. His vision blurred. Thomas had tried, had been so close, had died knowing he had almost succeeded. We finish it, Sam said, voice thick with emotion. We take these documents and we finish what he started. They were packing the documents carefully when the first shot rang out. The bullet struck rock inches from Sam's head, sending shards flying. He dove for cover, pulling Kiona with him. Naichi scrambled behind a boulder, moving faster than seemed possible for a dying man. 3 men emerged from positions in the rocks above the cave. Professional killers, just as Naichi had warned. Former military by the look of them. Hardened faces, precise movements. Men who'd done this before and would do it again. The leader called down. Brennan, we're not here for you. Send out the Apache woman and walk away rich. $500, no questions asked. Sam assessed their position. The cave provided cover, but they were pinned. 3 attackers with high ground advantage. Limited ammunition. No easy escape. How much is Cross paying you? Sam shouted. 500 for the woman, 1,000 if she's alive. Either way, we're not leaving empty-handed. Neither are we. You're outnumbered and outgunned. Be smart. Sam looked at Kiona. Their eyes met. No words needed. They'd come too far, lost too much to surrender now. We hold them off, Sam said quietly, long enough to get the documents to safety. Naichi, can you ride? Better than I can run, the old man replied. Then you take the documents. Ride hard for Albuquerque. Get them to the federal courthouse. We'll buy you time. No, Kiona said flatly. We stay together. If we all die here, this means nothing. Thomas's death means nothing. Your father's murder goes unpunished. Naichi has to survive, has to complete the mission. Kiona started to argue, then stopped. She understood. Hated it, but understood. Naichi took the documents, securing them in his coat. I will not fail you. This I swear on Takota's bones. Then go, now, before they block the south exit. The old man moved, faster than he had any right to. He reached his horse, mounted, and rode hard toward the valley's far end. One of the attackers saw him, shifted aim. Sam fired first. Didn't hit the man, but forced him to duck. Bought seconds. Precious seconds that got Naichi beyond effective range. Then it was war. The bounty hunters unleashed concentrated fire. Sam and Kiona returned it, making every shot count. Sam's marksmanship, honed over decades, was surgical. He didn't kill, didn't want to cross that line unless absolutely necessary. But he wounded. Shoulder shot that made one man drop his rifle. Leg shot that sent another scrambling for cover. Kiona's arrows were silent death. She pinned one attacker to a tree through his coat sleeve. Not lethal, but terrifying. The message was clear. They could have killed him, chose not to. That mercy was more frightening than brutality. The fight lasted 2 hours, sporadic gunfire, long periods of tense silence, both sides conserving ammunition, waiting for the other to make a mistake. Then the leader tried something desperate. Smoke grenades, thick white smoke that filled the valley, turning day into choking twilight. They're rushing, Sam shouted. He was right. The leader charged through the smoke, knife drawn. Close quarters now, too close for rifles. Sam swung his Henry like a club, connected with the man's jaw. Bone crunched. The leader dropped. But the second attacker tackled Kiona. They went down hard, grappling. He had size advantage. She had Sam's training. She hooked his ankle, twisted, used his momentum to flip him. Her knife was at his throat before he could react. Yield, she said coldly. He yielded. The third attacker, the one she'd pinned to the tree, had freed himself. He cornered Sam, both of them out of bullets. The man drew a Bowie knife, 10-inch blade, wicked sharp. You're dying for Indians who wouldn't piss on you if you were burning, the attacker spat. Sam had Thomas's badge in his pocket, could feel it through the fabric. A reminder of why he was here. I'm dying for justice, Sam replied. Something you wouldn't understand. They fought, brutal and ugly. The attacker was younger, stronger, but Sam had experience, had survived knife fights that would have killed most men. He waited patient for the opening that always came when anger clouded judgment. The man lunged, overcommitted. Sam stepped inside the attack, trapped the knife arm, delivered 3 rapid strikes to vulnerable points. Throat, solar plexus, knee. The attacker collapsed, gasping. Sam stood over him, chest heaving. Could finish this. One strike and it was done. But he thought about Danny's question, about what defined a man, not the violence he could do, the violence he chose not to. He stepped back, let the man live. The smoke cleared, 3 attackers down but alive. Sam and Kiona, bloody but standing. They tied the men up, took their weapons, their horses, their arrogance. Your evidence now, Sam told them. You'll testify Cross hired you, or you'll hang for attempted murder. Your choice, the leader, jaw swelling where Sam had hit him, actually smiled. You're giving us a choice after we tried to kill you. Redemption is always possible, Sam said. Even for people like you. Even for me. They rode hard, pushing the horses to their limit. Sam led the captured men on a rope line. Kiona rode scout, watching for more threats. 3 days back to the ranch. 3 days carrying evidence that could destroy Cross. On the second night, as they made camp, Sam noticed Kiona watching him with an expression he'd never seen before. What? He asked. You let them live, all 3. You could have killed them. Should have, probably. But you didn't. Killing them wouldn't change anything, except my soul. Most men wouldn't see it that way. I'm not most men, and I've seen what revenge does. Watched it eat my brother alive. I won't let it do the same to me. Kiona came closer, sat beside him. Their shoulders touched. Small contact, significant. When this is over, she said quietly, what do you want to happen? I want to stop running, want to build something that lasts, want to trust someone enough to sleep without watching the door. You trust me. I trust you. She took his hand. With my life, with my sister's life, with whatever comes next. Sam squeezed her hand, calloused palm against calloused palm. Two people who'd worked hard, fought hard, survived against odds that should have crushed them. Then we'll build something, he said. Together, not just survive, live. They rode into the ranch at sunset on day 7. Danny and Istis ran out to meet them, relief and joy transforming their faces. Sam dismounted, found himself immediately tackled by a 12-year-old boy who'd grown to think of him as a father. "You came back," Danny said, voice muffled against Sam's chest. "You actually came back." "Told you I would." Sam hugged him tight. "Always keep my promises." Istas embraced Kiona, the sisters clinging to each other with the ferocity of people who'd almost lost everything. But the reunion was interrupted by approaching riders. A lot of them. Sam tensed, reached for his rifle, then recognized the lead horse, Sheriff Blackwell. But he wasn't alone. 3 men in federal marshal uniforms rode with him. Behind them, another group Sam didn't recognize. Blackwell dismounted, removed his hat. His face was haggard, older than Sam remembered. "Brennan," Blackwell said, "I need to talk, all of you." They gathered in the cabin, too many people for the small space, but no one wanted to be outside. Blackwell stood awkwardly, clearly struggling with something heavy. "5 years ago," he began, voice rough, "Thomas Brennan came to me, said he had evidence against Cross, asked for my help. I told Cross, told him everything." 3 days later, Thomas was dead. The silence that followed was absolute. "I didn't kill him," Blackwell continued, "but I'm responsible. Cross paid men. I gave them information. I might as well have pulled the trigger." He pulled papers from his coat. "I've been collecting evidence since then. Every bribe, every threat, every illegal action Cross ordered. It's all here, documented, notarized, my confession and his crimes." Sam stared at him. "Why not? Why help after 5 years?" "Because I'm tired of being afraid, tired of serving evil men. Your brother believed justice mattered more than safety. He was right. I was wrong." Blackwell turned to the federal marshals. "I'm here to arrest Harlan Cross for murder, fraud, and conspiracy, and I'm here to confess my own crimes." The senior marshal, a weathered man named Harrison, studied the documents carefully. "These are detailed, convincing. Combined with the land grants you retrieved, we have enough to bring Cross to trial." "He won't come quietly," Sam warned. "Then we'll bring him loud." Harrison stood. "Cross is at his estate in Santa Fe. We ride at dawn with a federal warrant." But Cross came to them first. The next day, a single rider approached the ranch, alone, unarmed, hands visible. It was Cross himself. Sam couldn't believe it. The man who'd orchestrated murders, built an empire on theft, who'd sent killers after them. Riding up like a neighbor coming for coffee, Cross dismounted slowly. He looked diminished, thinner than Sam expected. Older. His expensive suit hung loose as if he'd lost weight recently. His eyes, when they met Sam's, held something Kane didn't expect. Despair. "I didn't come to fight," Cross said. His voice was raspy, tired. "I came to confess." Everyone tensed. This had to be a trick, some final desperate play. But Cross raised his hands, showing he was genuinely unarmed. 22 years ago, I was a young man, 32 years old, ambitious, cruel. I thought the West was mine for the taking. Thought natives didn't deserve what they couldn't defend." He looked at Kiona. "I killed your father, shot him while he slept, burned his camp, took his map and his land, and built an empire on his grave." "Why confess now?" Kiona's voice was hard as stone. "Because I'm dying, cancer. Doctors give me 6 months, and I've lived 23 years in fear. Fear of discovery, fear of punishment, fear of dying and facing judgment with blood on my hands." Cross pulled documents from his coat. "This is my will. Everything I own, all property, all money, all assets. I'm transferring it to an Apache educational trust for children like you were, so they don't grow up in a world where men like me can steal everything and call it progress." He held the papers toward Kiona. She didn't take them. "You think money buys forgiveness?" she asked. "No, nothing buys that. But maybe it prevents future harm. Maybe some child gets an education instead of getting robbed. Maybe that means your father's death wasn't completely meaningless." Sam watched this broken man offering inadequate atonement and felt something he didn't expect. Not pity, not forgiveness, but recognition of shared humanity. Cross was a monster who'd done monstrous things, but he was also a dying man trying desperately to find meaning in a wasted life. Justice isn't just punishment, Sam said quietly. It's also prevention. If your wealth educates children, if it builds schools and libraries and opportunities, then maybe something good comes from all this evil. Kiona looked at Sam, at her sister, at the documents Cross held. Her decision would define what came next: revenge or redemption, hatred or hope. She took the papers. Cross collapsed to his knees weeping. Marshal Harrison arrested him gently, almost kindly. As they led him away, Cross stopped, turned back to Sam. "Your brother," Cross said. "Thomas. He was a better man than I'll ever be. Don't waste your life like I did. Build something good." Sam watched him go, felt no triumph, no satisfaction, just sadness at the waste of it all. The lives lost, the years stolen, the potential destroyed, but also hope, because justice had finally come. Slow, imperfect, but real. The trial took 3 months. Federal court in Albuquerque. Cross pled guilty to all charges, avoided execution by cooperation, testifying about other crimes, other victims. Sentenced to 15 years hard labor. He died in prison 18 months later. Cancer taking what the law couldn't. The land grants were authenticated, validated. Kiona and Istas were declared legal owners of 10,000 acres. They established a community council, Apache and settler members working together. Bitter Creek was renamed Esperanza. Hope. Sheriff Blackwell served 2 years for his crimes. When released, he became a different man. Honest, dedicated, still atoning. 6 months after the trial, Sam and Kiona were married. The ceremony took place on a hillside overlooking the ranch. Simple, honest, Apache traditions blended with frontier practicality. Kiona wore a traditional dress Istis made. Sam wore his father's vest, the only inheritance he'd kept. Danny officiated. The boy had studied law books, learned the proper words. But more than that, he understood what marriage meant. Partnership, commitment, choosing to build something together. "Do you, Samuel Brennan, promise to stand beside this woman?" Danny asked, voice steady despite his youth. "I do. Not to lead her or follow her, but to walk beside her, through good times and hard, until the land reclaims us both." "And do you, Kiona, accept this man as your partner?" "I do. I promise to build with him, to fight with him, to create something that outlasts us both." They exchanged rings, simple silver bands Sam had forged himself in the workshop Danny had helped him set up. The community celebrated with food and stories and songs, Apache and Irish, old traditions and new hopes, laughter that was earned, not forced. As the sun set, Sam and Kiona stood at the property line looking over the land they'd fought for, bled for, nearly died for. "You think Thomas would approve?" Kiona asked. Sam touched the badge in his pocket. He carried it every day now, a reminder. "I think he'd say I finally did something worth doing. Building one family, community. Danny's going to be a lawyer, already smarter than I'll ever be. He'll teach his children. They'll teach theirs. The chain doesn't break." Kiona leaned into him. That's what Father wanted, not revenge, continuation. They stood in comfortable silence as stars emerged. Two people who'd found each other in darkness and chosen to build toward light. 10 years passed. Sam was 50 now. Gray-haired, moving slower, but still strong, still building. The ranch had grown into something more. A small town, really. Workshops and homes and a school. A place where people were judged by character, not skin color. Danny, 22 years old, ran the town's first honest bank. Fair lending practices, no exploitation. He'd married a teacher. They had a child on the way. Estas taught at the school. 60 students, Apache, white, Mexican, all learning together. Reading, writing, mathematics, history told honestly instead of selectively. Sam and Kiona had 3 children, 2 daughters, 1 son, learning both Apache and frontier ways. Growing up in a world their parents had fought to create. One evening, Sam sat in the workshop teaching his eldest daughter carpentry. She was 8 years old, bright, curious, asking questions he loved answering. "Papa, why do you limp?" she asked, noticing the way he favored his left leg. "Old bullet wound from the cave fight. From when I learned what matters." "What matters?" Sam looked through the window. saw Danny teaching his youngest son to work a lathe, saw Kiona and Istas planning next year's curriculum, saw a community that functioned on cooperation instead of exploitation. People, he said, family, not blood family necessarily, chosen family, people you stand with even when it's hard. That's what matters. Someday you'll have to choose. Easy path or right path. I hope you choose right. His daughter hugged him. I'll choose like you, Papa. Sam held her thinking about all the choices that had led here. Thomas's choice to investigate Cross, his own choice to cut those ropes, Danny's choice to trust instead of run, Kiona's choice to hope instead of hate. Small choices, made by ordinary people, building towards something extraordinary. That night, after his daughter was asleep, Sam sat on the porch with the watch Danny had repaired years ago. It still kept perfect AM, still marked moments passing, but now those moments felt precious instead of painful. Kiona joined him as she often did. They'd been married 10 years, but the comfortable silence between them never grew old. Thinking about Thomas, she asked. Always, but differently now, not with guilt, with gratitude. He started something we finished. That matters. It does. They sat together as the desert night breathed around them. Somewhere coyotes sang, somewhere an owl hunted, life continuing in its ancient patterns indifferent to human struggles. But Sam wasn't indifferent. He'd spent 10 years building something that would outlast him. A community, a family, a legacy measured not in land or money, but in people who knew how to build, to teach, to choose, right over easy. Thomas, wherever you are, he thought we did it. We made something good from all that pain. We turned blood into hope. The watch ticked steadily in his hand. Time passing, but no longer wasted. Behind him through the window, lamplight glowed warm. His family, his home, his life's work. Sam Brennan had finally stopped running, had finally stopped hiding, had finally become the man his brother always believed he could be. And in a West built on violence and theft, that quiet transformation was the most revolutionary act of all.